Hello friends and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be talking about sentiment analysis using NVivo and Chat GPT. In the last recorded session I talked that I'll be explaining some of the qualitative techniques using Chat GPT and NVivo. So in the same lecture series today I'm going to talk about sentiment analysis. Now, sentiment analysis is also termed as opinion mining and it is a process of determining the emotional tone behind a body of text. So, the purpose of sentiment analysis is primarily to understand the sentiment expressed in customer reviews, social media posts, and other textual form. So, any sort of text data, and you want to understand what are the writer's attitude towards a particular phenomenon is positive, negative, neutral, then you actually use a sentiment analysis, and which is being extensively used these days in the social science research as well. So how algorithm works is essentially it is a three steps wherein first we pre-process the text by tokenizing and removal of the stop words. Then we extract certain feature, right, and in the form of a bag of words. And then finally, we use lexicon-based approaches or machine learning approaches to classify sentiment as positive, negative, or neutral, right? Now, once you provide the data set to a machine, the machine would actually there are several algorithms to do that. I'm not going into detail of that, but let's say one such is you assign a polarity. So let's say I love this product, it's fantastic. So the first review is it is a positive sentiment because I is a neutral, love is a +1, this is a neutral, product is +1, right? It is neutral but fantastic +1. So it's a positive sentiment. Terrible experience, will not buy again is a negative sentiment. So this approach is termed as approaches which is in which you assign a polarity to each word, and then the algorithm will I would identify whether the sentiment is positive, negative. uh, Sentiment analysis can be used in businesses in the form of analyzing the customer feedback and their reviews, monitoring the brand progress. In the social media, you can use the trend analysis or public opinion monitoring. For instance, a lot of political parties also perform a sentiment analysis if they plan some intervention or they do something, and then they would analyze the social media post and see whether uh, this particular development or intervention has generated a positive sentiment or negative sentiment. The algorithm or the programs for the sentiment analysis is not foolproof. There are still some challenges. For instance, though there is a mechanism, but there is no foolproof mechanism of identifying whether it is a sarcasm or an irony detection, right? That's very difficult to do. And then at times there is an ambiguity in the word itself. And then the most important is the context. Sometimes it is very important to understand the context in which a particular word has been used rather than simply looking at the semantic part of it. And obviously, in some of the languages, the sentiment analysis algorithm may not work. So let me give you an idea that how we generally do it in uh, NVivo. Let's say this is an NVivo interface and I import any file. Let's say this is an interview which I have taken from 4 different respondents, or for that matter, any number of respondents. And I want to identify the sentiment of the combined responses, what they have done. So these are for example, the first interviewee is Mr. Revario, who is a male research scholar, 29 years old. And I asked the first question, how do you perceive the representation of gender equality in advertisement? And then this is the answer. Now, when you read this particular answer, I think the representation of gender equality in advertisement varies greatly. So what you'll do is you will identify a particular text. For example, if I identify text like this, then I go for Control F2, as I explained in my previous video also. Then I go to sentiment, and then I identify whether sentiment is positive, negative, or neutral. So let's say the sentiment is positive, negative, then I would identify whether this sentiment is positive, negative, or neutral. That is one way or conventional way of doing it. But the challenge is you have to read the entire script and then you have to do it manually for each statement. So that is this could be a little cumbersome if the document size is vast. For example, if you are performing a sentiment analysis of a novel altogether, then it would be a little difficult. So another way, as I said earlier also, another way is you go for an autocode and then you prompt that, okay, go for sentiment analysis, and then you just identify the sentiment of this particular text, right? So what would happen is NVivo would, based on its pre-fed information, based on the lexicon, it would identify whether how many of these sentences were positive, negative, neutral, and mixed sentences. So you can present in the form of this rectangle representation, or you can present into form of a kind of a pie chart wherein you can specify this is a negative sentiment, this is a mixed sentiment, this is a positive sentiment, right? And then you can always present in the form of a histogram also, that there are few people who have said it's very negative, some people have talked about moderately negative, mostly talked about moderately positive, and a very few, I mean, few sentences on the very positive also. That's the one way of doing it. Let's say you do not have an access to NVivo or for that matter any package, then what you can do, you can also do it alternatively through Chat GPT, as I was explaining. Uh, you upload any file. Let's say I want to upload my combined response file. So I go to combined responses, all interviews put together. You can do separately also for the purpose of no video. I have combined all the responses, but otherwise you can use the analysis on a separate file. So I have uploaded file. I want GPT to first summarize above file in, let's say, 100 words, right? There we go. Uh, and then it has given you a crisp summary of now what is this document is all about. Now I can prompt it. Can you identify sentiment from file uploaded? Sentiment could be depending upon whether you want positive, negative, or neutral, right? Could be, let's say I want positive, negative per se, right? Positive and negative. You can prompt it to neutral also, that's not a problem. So these have been summarized, that what are the positive sentiment of the text and what are the negative sentiment. Can you identify sentiment respondent wise and present in table form? Let's see what it does. I expect it to come up with a table wherein, yes, wherein no, you in the first column you have a interviews name, right? These are the 4 interviews. Then what are their sentiment, whether they are used positive, negative, or next, right? Let's say, can you insert third column with excerpts. So I want to be sure that this sentiments has been generated based on the text which I have provided. So that's very important that one should do. No. So like for example, why did you say that it consists of both positive negative? Because some of the statement appears to be positive, negative, neutral. Can you provide demographic details, demographic details, and present in the fourth column. Right. So here you got a summary that what about Mr. Evario, what about Miss Jennifer, Roji, right? So you got a demographic detail as well. And then can you present, let's say, can you present about sentiments in chart form? And there we go. We expect that there should be some visual representation the way we were doing it in NVivo, right? And then I expect the chart is to be presented. Mr. Rebario, Miss Jennifer, Professor Roji, Professor Alexander, right? And then you got the one which is for blue, green is a positive sentiment, and the one which is red is a negative sentiment, right? So you can do it like this also. So the idea here is to just sensitize you. Obviously, as I said earlier also, that these are only to equip you with the how analysis can be carried out using the AI tool. I'm not asking you to fully be dependent on this. These are the ways in which the initial solution can be generated in case if you do not have a no commercial packages which is available to you. For instance, this table you can just simply import in your thesis or a research paper about the sentiment analysis, right? So the bottom line remains the same, that AI tool, as I have been recommending all the time, should be used judiciously. It should not be abused. So as far as my take is concerned, I'm very clear that it can be used or it should be used only for the data analysis, not for data creation and report writing, right? So ideally, what I would expect is one should input the data, look at the trend or identify the trends, especially if you have no prior experience, then it is advisable that you look at the trend using the Chat GPT or any AI tool, then try to do it in the commercial packages or any open source uh, package, or you can also make use of no, R and Python in order to perform sentiment analysis. That can also be easily done there also. So the my message to you is uh, this is a very powerful technique, that sentiment analysis. Though it is not a robust technique, it is still considered to be heuristic because it is based on the trial and error. But then it has been advantageously used, especially if you have large data. It's just to identify what are the sentiment of the author who is writing a piece of text. There are n number of application, but in order to make this video little